بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon all of you.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you all so much for coming out today, and I would like to especially welcome the MSA who have been extremely kind, patient, and yet very professional in this entire process. So thank you, MSA, for having me. It's an honor to be here. My name is Sally Adnan, and I'm here to talk about a very important topic, the hijab. And if you can see, my title is The Truth of the Hijab, because I feel, and a lot of people, a lot of Muslims feel that the truth is not always revealed when it comes to Islam. So happy International Women's Day. Before I forget, to all the women out there, I'm going to start with the definition of the hijab. So, how many of you are familiar with the hijab? Okay. How many Muslims do we have in here? Good, not a lot. That's great. That's very good. Okay? Because then I'd be preaching to the choir, right? Okay. Since not, maybe like half of you said that, let's go ahead and take a poll. If you all would, I'm sure everybody's familiar with Kahoot, right? If you do me a favor and go to kahoot.com and just join this code real quick. I want to make this more interactive and not so much I'm just like talking at you. So, kahoot.com, or no, sorry, www.kahoot.it, and then the game pen, yep. Right. Thank you, Emily, Zoe, Tina, Trevon, Andrew, Maya, Maham, Audrey. Awesome. Hunter. Thank you. Wow. MashaAllah. Okay. All right, let's start. You can always join still. All right. Taking you back to middle school, y'all. I'm a middle school teacher. What does hijab apply? Who does hijab apply to in Islam? Ooh. All right, 31, okay, about 78% said it's for women. All right, the truth of this is that in the Quran, which is our holy book, the holy book of Muslims, hijab for men is mentioned first, okay? Allah is another term for God, so when you hear me say Allah, it means God. It's just the Arabic term for God. Allah says, tell the believing men that they must lower their gazes and guard their private parts. It is more decent for them. Surely Allah is all aware of what they do. So from this verse, we know that the hijab is actually directed towards the men before even directed towards the women, right? And from this verse, we also understand that the hijab is more than just the dress code, right? Most of us when we think of the hijab, we think a headscarf, a woman covering her body, but really it's both a woman and a man covering their body. And what was the first thing that is said in this verse?
Lower their gaze.
To lower your gaze, right? So it's telling the man, lower your gaze. Okay, stop staring at these women. They're beautiful, we know. Right? But you must lower your gaze. So, what is the definition of hijab? What does this exactly mean, the word hijab? What does this reveal about the word hijab? Okay?
That is like modesty and being modest.
Excellent, right? That is a major part of it, right? Modesty. Anyone else? Yes.
Self-respect and respect for others.
I love that. Self-respect and respect for others. The hijab actually literally means to cover and protect. To cover and protect. But are we only covering our body? No. We're covering and protecting our souls, right? Our hearts, our minds, our dignity, right? So hopefully that clarified a bit of a misconception about hijab. A very special person in my life told me that, technically, hijab really applies to every single society in the world. Think about it, here in the United States, can we walk around naked? Wouldn't you get arrested if you walk around naked? Isn't it like against the law? Right? So this is a form of hijab, right? It's a way, it's modesty. There is a limit, right? It's just that in Islam, it's the limit is a little bit more than it is maybe in other societies. Okay, so I just wanted to share that. Hopefully it resonated with someone out there. So I wanted to, as Farah, when she introduced me, I am an urban education degree major, and I care very much about diversity and inclusion. And so I had to put this in there. That's just that side of me. Is the societal challenges that mainly women are facing because of this misconception that hijab is only for the women, right? Because of this misconception, women are discriminated against, Muslim women, highly discriminated against. So you see that in Hong Kong, right? A female student actually has to take off her hijab if she wants to study in Hong Kong. In China, Muslim women were forced to take away their hijab if they wanted to work at a restaurant, and I have a story about that. In India, Muslim girls were not allowed to wear the hijab in schools. And in Europe, right, the most shocking one to me, how many agree that that's shocking that it's in Europe? Countries like France and Germany, right? That they actually banned the hijab in schools and workplaces. A Muslim woman could not work in Europe if she keeps her hijab on. True story. This is all within the past 5 years, right? And then you have African countries, which is very disturbing because there's a lot of Islam that originated in that region. So it's almost scary to me that African countries also participated in this ban of hijab. So it's a serious problem, right? It's a growing problem. I wonder if it's going to come to the United States. How many think that it might happen in the US? Oh, wow, okay. You guys are keeping it real. Right, yeah, no, it's scary. It's particularly scary to me. I'm going to play a video, and I want you to hear what this gentleman says about why it's okay. And then I'm going to ask you what you think about it. No, thank you.
A landmark ruling in a contentious case. The European Court of Justice has ruled that employers may ban Muslim staff from wearing a headscarf under certain circumstances. It came in a judgment on 2 cases brought by women in Germany who were suspended from their jobs for wearing the hijab.
Article 9, Article 1 and Article 2AA of Council Directive 2000/78 must be interpreted as meaning that an internal rule of an undertaking which prohibits workers from wearing any visible sign of political, philosophical or religious beliefs at the workplace does not constitute direct discrimination on grounds of religion or belief within the meaning of that directive in relation to workers who observe certain dress codes on the basis of religious observance, provided that the rule is applied generally and without distinction.
Oder der Weltanschauung im Sinne dieser Richtlinie darstellt, sofern diese Regel allgemein und unterschiedslos angewandt wird.
Okay. Okay. So according to this gentleman, right, as long as we apply this fairly, so all religions are banned, all religious wear are banned, and observing any kind of religion is forbidden, right? As long as we make it fair, then this is not discriminatory against anyone. And I want to hear your opinion before we talk about this, right? Where's my Kahoot? There it is. This one was about sports, but in general, right? Is the European Union justified for banning hijabs in schools and the workplace? Okay. There's a few of us who say yes. That's okay. And that's why we have to talk about it. And I'm glad we have some that say yes, right? Because I don't think a lot of us understand why it's different for a Muslim than it is for other religions. And that's what I'm here to talk about. So, in the Quran, before we go into that, I have to kind of lay some foundation. In the Quran, Allah says that verily we did raise a messenger among every people with the message, worship Allah and stay away from the rebel. So Muslims believe that every single society in the world has had a messenger. Okay? However, we believe that the difference is that for Muslims, the Quran was preserved, meaning that the Quran is connected, right, to all these religions because all these religions are coming from God. But the Quran is different in somewhat, not different like better, but the Quran is just being preserved so it will not change as other religions have. It is the latest religion, right? It's the latest revealed major religion. So just to give you guys a timeline, right? To kind of show you how the hijab basically evolved over time. In Hinduism, which is the oldest major religion, hijab was preserved. It was observed. As you can see, these women, they're covering their hair, they're wearing loose clothing, and they're kind of, amongst themselves, right? They're not mixing genders. In Judaism, how many of you all, you don't have to, tell me, but how many of you all observe Judaism or Jews, okay? So this is common, right? Some women cover their hair, right? In Buddhism, interestingly, kind of changed, right? The men and the women, they're shaving their heads off, and their hair off. And in case you didn't know, in Islam, men are wearing the kufi, and in Judaism, the yarmulke, right? So they're also putting something on their heads, right? We're going to talk about that. And then you have in Christianity, right? You see it in churches, the nuns are observing hijab, our definition of hijab, loose clothing, covering their hair. And in Catholicism, my really good friend, she's Catholic, they wear scarves when they go to church. And then Islam came. And also, the women in Islam wear the hijab. But in Islam, right, women continue to wear the hijab. Whereas in other religions, it has become more so a choice. Not a choice, I'm sorry. In Islam, it's also a choice, but an option, right? It is not believed necessarily that you must cover your hair or dress a certain way to be observing Christianity. However, in Islam, most Muslims believe that this is a law that was brought down by God. And so now, those of you who may have said yes, right? We want to think about that. Is it okay to strip someone from their divine beliefs? Is it okay to tell someone that although you believe your God asked you to wear the hijab, you must take it off? That's tough, right? That's tough. Especially when we understand that this is not a new concept, right? This is a concept that has been since the religion. And just to give you some more historical context, in Islam, when the hijab was, when it was revealed in the Quran to tell the believing women to wear their khimar. Khimar means the garment that covers your head, right? The scarf. When Allah told them to use that garment to cover their bosom, it was because at that time, the Arab women of that time covered their hair already. Before the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, even appeared. The Arab women of that time, they were not Muslims. They were not even people of the book. They were not believers. They were actually idol worshippers, that society. And so the verse was revealed to tell those women, to the believing women, the women who have converted to Islam, who began to follow the Prophet Muhammad, to cover their bosom. And why? Why did God tell them to do that? Of course, modesty. But if you understand the history behind it, women who were not Arabs or who did not cover their hair at that time were slaves. Right? And the women who became Muslim, they were honored. They were honored by the hijab. So that's one of the purposes and one of the significances of wearing the hijab. So can you tell a woman who believes that this preserves her dignity that she cannot wear it at work, she cannot wear it at school? Right? You have to ask yourself that question. This slide just kind of shows how Muslims believe that Islam applies to the entire world because it was preserved, and that many believe that all these religions were revealed by God, but they were revealed for a specific time and for a specific niche of people, whereas Islam was believed to be preserved and spread all over the world for all races and all mankind. Okay, so we talked about dignity, right? But I do want to mention that originally the reason why Muslims, whether men or women, why we would observe the hijab, why we would observe the hijab, number one, it's for the sake of God, right? It's to please God. It is a worship. That's like telling me to take off my hijab is like telling me to stop becoming a Muslim. That's how strong it is. It is a worship, right? Number two, and then after that, once you do it for the sake of God, then you can entertain why you're doing it, right? And you can say, oh, there's some benefits to this, right? I don't get harassed ever since I put on the hijab. I get discriminated against, but I don't get harassed. Truth. I get discriminated against, and it's hard, but I don't get harassed, and that's interesting to me. I still get attention from the opposite sex, right? I still get attention, but it's attention that is very respectful. Like holding the door, being kind, very respectful. Attention that I can appreciate. Not like what it says in number 5, right? I don't feel objectified. I really don't. Whereas before I put on the hijab, and I didn't put it on very early. I actually not put on the hijab. I observed, see, I'm making that same mistake, right? I began observing the hijab completely by putting on the headscarf after I graduated from college, right? So I've had a lot of experience both ways, okay? And I do want to say that it is a great reminder that I'm a Muslim. For those of you who are Muslims and are in college, it is hard to always remember you're a Muslim because everyone around you is not, or most of the people around you are not Muslim. So sometimes you can slip, you can forget, you can do things you're not supposed to do. But when you have on the hijab, people always remind you that you're a Muslim. Even if you forget that you have it on, Someone's gonna remind you by the way they act or how they treat you, whether it's good or bad. It's a reminder of who you are. And if you do something that is sinful, it's not because you forgot, right? Can't say it's because I forgot. It's because you're human, right? You made a mistake. You will repent, blah, blah, blah. And finally, it is a great way of representing, or it gives me a great feeling of dignity and self-worth, especially after knowing and understanding the history of how the hijab and why the hijab was obligated for women, right, and men. That is all I have for today's talk. I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you for coming. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start with the ones that I have. Why do some women wear the hijab and not others? Ooh, that's a really good question. I can answer that question because I used to be a woman who didn't wear the hijab, and now I do. There are many reasons why. For me, I honestly did not believe that wearing the headscarf, right, is obligatory to Muslim women. Honestly, I didn't have enough knowledge about my religion, and so I was very proud. I was a very proud Muslim, but I just didn't understand the history and all of that behind it. I didn't know, there's a lot I didn't know, and so I interpreted the verses incorrectly. Like if you didn't know that Arab women, back in the day, Arab women already wore scarves around their heads, you would not interpret the verse that says, take those scarves and cover your bosom correctly, right? You would just think, oh, those scarves are supposed to cover your bosom. Does that make sense? But what the point is that you're supposed to cover your hair still, but also cover your bosom, because those women were revealing their cleavage. And so as an honor for Muslim women, God tells them, you're more valuable than that, cover your cleavage, right? So that's one reason why some women don't wear it, is that they don't really believe that it's obligatory. Another reason is because it's hard. It's not easy. Yes?
Yeah, when I was in 6th grade, when I first started wearing it,
6th grade, y'all.
yeah. I kind of like my first intention, I didn't want to because like of the way society was treating me. Like, because like as a middle schooler, you want to be included in, in school activities. It's like a really big decision, especially for a middle schooler.
And you made that decision, right? That's what a lot of people also don't know. She was in 6th grade, but she made that decision. My daughter right now, Melek, she's always like, can I wear it to school? I'm like, okay, all right, go ahead. She wears it one day, takes it out the other, she's practicing. So it's a decision. It's a decision that is made by the woman most of the time. Of course, there are some exceptions. But yeah, that's really the main two reasons I can think of. How and where does one get a hijab? Are there any notable retailers who produce them? Are there lots of small businesses who make them? Very good questions. So, you can find a hijab can be any kind of scarf, right? When you go to these like Dillard's and JCPenney, or if you go to Ross, any major department store has scarves. And that's what I use, right? Right? You can go to Amazon, right? And they have scarves. Buy them online, they're everywhere. Yeah, it's not hard to find them. It's just like a normal scarf, and then you get to pick and choose which color you want, which material you want. It's really an art, and I started super late, so I'm not artistic about it. I need a lot of practice. I'm very plain, I just wrap it, but there are so many ways you could do it to like fit your personality, right? And it's encouraged to do that, right? Why do some women wear the 100% cover hijab, the ones that cover the whole face and eyes? Very great question. So, A little bit of history, right? Again, I had no idea about this until I studied Islam. The wives of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, they were the ones who were demanded by Allah to cover their face. And the reason was because all the men were so interested in how they looked, right? And, in that society, women were a lot more modest. It was different from today's society. But all the men would come, some that were a little obnoxious, right? They would come and say hello and peace to the Prophet. We want to come and meet you, but really they wanted to check out his new wife, right? Right? Or this great woman that everybody's talking about. And so that hurt the feelings of the Prophet. He never said that to anyone, but when the verse was revealed, that's how all Muslims knew that that's what God did it for. So the women who choose to cover their face, are the ones who want to follow who we call the mothers, our mothers, who are the wives and the daughters of the Prophet Muhammad. Peace and blessings be upon him. They want the ultimate honor of being modest and kind of removing themselves from any desire or any kind of attention of this world. Any distraction, which is hard, right? It's hard. How often do you get comments whether that they are good or bad? Honestly, I get good comments all the time. I love your hijab. Oh, I like that color. I like how you matched it with your outfit. People are very sweet, and I had to give it to being here in America. That's why I came back. That's why I had to come back home, because I grew up here with such an open mind, and it's a blessing to have that again. And you don't realize it until you leave that society and you don't get that at all. Then you realize, oh, there's a lot of good in American society. There's a lot of good, a lot more than bad. You take it for granted. But is there bad? Oh, yeah, there's bad. I have many stories of bad. I'm sure everybody, right? And it's not just the hijab. We have racism in America. We have lots of issues in America. We have sexism, and it's International Women's Day. Let me bring up the sexism part, right? We have a lot of issues. We have homophobia, and we have a lot of issues. It's because we don't want to always talk about it. We want to say it's political, And then we don't want to say, I disagree, but I respect you. That's okay. I don't want you to believe in the hijab. I just want you to respect it. Just like there are things I'm not going to believe in, and I want you to respect that, right? Not everyone can believe in everything. That is a myth, right? So, good and bad. Are there different types of styles of headscarves? Yes. How are they? So a lot of them also, this is the more Middle Eastern way of wearing it. But then there's the African way of wearing it, right? Where you wear it around and you wrap it. That's also one way. Do you guys want to share?
This is my way. Yeah. So.
Very loose, right? She has something underneath that's tight to make sure her hair is not out, and then she wears the scarf around loosely. Why do we need to stay modest? Okay. In Islam and all the major religions, we believe, right, that Satan was jealous of Adam. Is this in Christianity and Judaism too? Is it only in Islam? Where Satan, is this only in Islam? Where Satan asked God, why are you, making this man out of clay? I'm made out of fire. I'm so much better. Yeah? It's in Judaism. I know it's in Judaism, so that means it's in Christianity too, because it's the First Testament, right? So, arrogance is the ultimate sin. It's the reason why we're all here, right? If we believe in the Abrahamic religion, arrogance is the worst sin. Believing the truth. better than everybody else, not staying humble, right? Not lowering your gaze, not remembering that this body, this look, this hair is all from, you didn't earn it. You were born that way, you know? That should not distinguish you from someone else. So that's why it's important that we stay modest. It also keeps our mind focused on other things but ourselves and, you know, insignificant things. Right? We focus more on what's really important. Can you use anything as a hijab, or does it have to be woven a special way? You can use anything as a hijab. My daughter yesterday, she was, it was time for us to pray. And when it's time for us to pray, even though we're in the house, women wear the headscarf, and she was looking for something. I was like, Melek, you can just pick up anything and cover your hair and pray. It's okay, right? So the point is to cover your hair. Does a hijab, or your body, does a hijab symbolize something? I touched on that, right? You're representing, you know? You're representing. Before I put on the hijab, nobody knew I was a Muslim. People thought I was Hispanic. I got all kinds of, are you mixed? You know, are you Hispanic? Nobody knew that I was a Muslim, you know, nobody knew that. I mean, you could still be Hispanic and mixed and be a Muslim, but you guys know what I mean. You know, they had no idea that I was from Sudan, which is really where I'm from, right? A country that is mainly Muslim, right? Majority Muslim. Nobody knew that. Nobody bothered to know. They were just like some Hispanic chick, right? So you're representing as a Muslim. When you do something good, when you do something great, everybody knows, oh, that's Islam? Right? You're spreading the word by your actions. So that's how I see it. Do you guys see any symbolism besides that? Yeah? When can you take off your hijab? That's a good question. So you can take off your hijab at home in front of your husband. You can take it off in front of other women. You can take it off in front of any man that is considered like lawfully related to you, like any man who by law cannot marry you. So like your father, your brother, your son, even your sons-in-laws, and your your uncle, right? Can't take out the hijab in front of your cousins because it's not illegal, it's not sinful to marry your cousin in Islam. And that's in Christianity and all the religions. It's not a sin. It was very common in the past too, but it's not encouraged to marry within family too much, but so you can't take it off in front of your cousin. That's basically it. It's hijab. Oh, you can also take it off in front of really young boys who aren't, attracted to women yet, right? So you're not going to be attracting. Is hijab always worn? If you can take it off, then who is allowed to see your hair? I just answered that question. And that's it. That's all. Thank you all for having me, and I hope, do you have any?
No, that's it. Thank you guys for joining us.